Ducktales 20 years later, episode 22. The sun had come up over the Bombay horizon, but 1 half hour before, and the haze of night still clung to the city like a jacket. The clear sky and spectacular ring of the sun had gone unnoticed and unheeded by the occupant of the top floor penthouse office of the Khan building. He was not especially pleased or displeased with any of the news that had come to his office about everything that had occurred. The investigations into his affairs, the war that blocked that investigation, the SIL's custodial responsibility over the Duck family keeping them out of his hair. It was simply news and interesting tidbits to add to the pile. The business plan had already gone through, after all, and would soon start affect the bottom line. He took a bread and muffin from a small bag on his desk, peeled off the paper film surrounding the rounded edge of the stump, and licked it. His rough tongue stripping bits of the pastry that had stuck to the paper off and into his mouth. He then discarded the film in a small wastebasket by his desk, without any really thinking about it. Only a member of the Khan family could eat a muffin and look like a boss. Before reaching for a formerly warm cup of tea that had been left on his desk slightly too soon. Still enjoyable. One sugar, lots of milk, but it could have done with a little more heat. If it happened again, he would have words with the woman outside. He drank it in silence, allowing himself the briefest of indulgences before he dived into the meat of the day's activities. The official declaration was supposed to be announced later today. The papers had predicted, and he had been ready for McDuck Enterprises to receive the various orders for weapons for every army in the world. Such things would be time-consuming. Therefore, he needed his strength. He puffed the last of the muffin into his mouth. It was quite good, from a privately owned store around the corner from the Khan building. He enjoyed the irony of it. Sipping down the last of his tea, he began to look over the work he had left the night before, as well as the work that had piled up over the night. He found, at the top of the stack, an envelope unmarked. He smiled and reached into a drawer, pulling out a pair of steel pliers, before picking up the blank, unmarked envelope and clicking a small, hidden button under his desk. A hole opened up in his wastebasket, which he dropped the letter down, letting it flare into the dark, before calling his receptionist.
"I've sent a blank letter down the chute," he said in Hindi. "Have it diffused and traced, and have whoever sent it killed."
He cut the connection for the receptionist's office and took a final sip of tea. It was good tea, he had to admit, even if it was a bit on the cold side. The large plate glass window behind him and slightly to the left suddenly exploded into the room, showering glass all over the carpet. His head whipped around as he dodged to the right, avoiding catching a small, red two-seater convertible with the back of his neck. A lot of broken shards of glass besides. He fell to the floor, or crawled away from the still settling wreckage that was made of his office by the car. He cleared the desk just as the front fender clipped the corner and caused the whole great oak thing to spin around, nearly missing striking him in the leg as he crawled towards the bookcase. Once there, he tapped the hidden button to call for security. While still on his sofa, he proceeded to pull out book after book out of the bookcase, before he found what he was looking for. A copy of a motivational book called Your Greatest Attributes, which he opened to reveal a hollowed-out chamber with a revolver inside. He grasped the gun and pointed towards the wreckage that finally crashed to the far wall. Not quite enough to break through the thick wood paneling. He then pointed towards the now open window, where a small parade of ducks was entering from the nose of a purple, duck-shaped plane that hovered in the air near the window. He fired the gun once towards the first hint of blue he saw, Dewey, but the bullet was quickly deflected by Gizmo Duck, stepping in front of the bullet. The steel duck bore down on him quickly, prepared to fire again, aiming for the duck's uncovered mouth and neck. The gun was knocked out of his hand by a large boxing glove that struck the silver firearm. However, the door to Ferris's office opened, and a crowd of Beagle boys dressed as security guards poured in. "Come on, Gizmo!" yelled Darkwing Duck, jumping into the room from the thunderquack, firing arrow after arrow at the swarming beagles. The Green Phantom, wielding a long, weathered whip, managed to hold off and disarm the beagles, while Darkwing Duck knocked them out with sleepy arrows. Gizmo Duck turned away from Kagan to join the fight, succeeding in pushing the security guards out of the office and into the reception area. Suddenly safe, fairy began to crawl towards the downed revolver. Almost reached it when the sound of a cocking musket made itself apparent. "Stop it, Ferret," said Dewey Duck, coolly, holding the gun squarely at Kagan's face, flanked by Huey and PK like two muscled bouncers. "No more getting in your way. For now, we chat." Out in the hall, Gizmo, GP, and DW were making quick work of the Beagle Boys. The artless thieves and purses were unused to fighting superheroes in any case, and fighting three at once was nearly impossible. The Green Phantom laughed gaily as he hit his stride. The long whip he wielded at once a lash, a bind, and a long prehensile limb. To one Beagle about to fire a gun, he gave a quick flip of his wrists, and a red, bloody gash appeared on the sensitive skin on the back of his hand, causing him to drop the gun in surprise. To another, he flipped the leather cord around, wrapping it around the Beagle's head and pulling sharply, causing the man to fall into a group of his allies, scattering him like 10 pins. Swipe, whip, spin! The new cape he had procured before the adventure whirled around him, scaring his form from the bullets wanting to purchase into his flesh, causing the dancing whip to become even more deadly and unpredictable. Gizmo Duck was more direct. Boxing gloves to KO incoming beagles, rockets to scare large groups, oil slicks or marbles to trip up pursuers. The Steel Duck's power was nearly unlimited as he destroyed wide swaths of enemies, leaving stragglers desperate to escape his wrath and fall within the range of one of his two allies. Darkwing did not move so much, preferring to hang back, covered quite well by the two boys fighting gallantly and flamboyantly. As he stayed behind and fired bow upon the encouraging dogs, near endless supply of arrows dipped in chloroform. But yes, many Beagle Boys simply died away. However, some carelessly shot through the heart or head and simply died. Eventually, the three of them had finished off the last of the troops. However, machine gun noises, thankfully from a terrible shot, caused the Phantom and Darkwing to dive behind Gizmo Duck. Gizmo extended a body-length shield with a convenient eye hole, through which he saw Ballast Beagle, fat and stupid, firing blindly into the room, hitting his downed allies more often than he hit the Duck's shield. The walls more often than both. Thinking fast, the Green Phantom pulled an arrow from Darkwing's quiver, ignoring her silent protests, before breaking off the tip and placing it in a sling recovered from his utility belt. Counting his blazes, he reached around the shield, swinging into the bulbous head of the arrow towards the gun-toting Beagle Boy. The ball flew through the air as if in slow motion, before, by chance, it was struck out of the air by a bullet. Dallas, who was laughing like a baby with a bundle of noisy keys, caught the full brunt of the explosion of Darkwing's explosive-tipped arrows in his face and chest. Slower reasons rendered safe by the bunking gun. Other reasons, however, were blown clear off. The red meat of his face and chest revealed in a moment of terrible heat and fire as the firing slowed down and suddenly stopped. His eyes ripped open, never to close again. He fell to the floor, gun first, dying, propped up by the heavy weapon with a grotesque childlike display on his face. "Ballast!" cried a voice behind, as Brain-Key's Beagle reached around the corpse of his fat brother and fired wildly with his pistol, which was much more accurate than the huge gun before. "I'll kill you!" However, Gizmo Duck, covered by his shield, was able to roll towards Brain-Case. A huge white-gloved hand popped out of Gizmo's chest and grasped the Beagle by the head, picking him up bodily. The gun dropped to the floor, carring his knocked against the hard floor. With a lip crack, the Beagle was tossed casually against the wall, knocked out by the concussion, before falling upon a pile of bodies of his brothers. Personally, all these times I see these guns firing, and I just want Gizmo to just slowly lower his hand as a bullet comes into his glove and he crushes it. The three heroes gathered in the center of the room, surrounded by the grisly fruits of their efforts. Darkwing knocked an arrow, getting Phantom ready to swip, and Gizmo's hand covered his other Gizmo. "Going up!" yelled a voice from above, before a rope, tied in a noose, came down to encircle Darkwing's throat. As he was lifted up suddenly, her cry cut off in mid-choke and disappeared up above through a hole in the stucco ceiling. "Gus!" cried the Green Phantom as he rushed towards to grab her, before stopping, realizing that would strangle her faster. GP and Gizmo stood, dumbfounded, as they heard a laughing and scuffling up above. A mad cackle that seemed to drip with sweat and oil took on a tone of impure intentions. The sounds of a scuffle took on a lecherous tone as the rustle of clothes replaced the laugh. Gizmo was about to aim a Gizmo above when the sound suddenly stopped. Crash! Through the thin ceiling of material, a body came down. It was Boner Beagle, half undressed, pants unbuttoned, arousal plain to see, standing erect as the arrow which had been thrust into him, creating a bloody wound right through his right eye into his brain. He twisted pathetically, going soft on his death rattle, before he breathed out and was silenced. Soon after, Darkwing jumped down from the crawl space above the ceiling, landing atop the dead man's chest, certainly cracking a still warm rib. She was breathing hard, and had blood on her purple glove and the noose still around her neck. Louis ran up to her, pulling the noose away from over her head, reached down to kiss her roughly. She protested for a moment. She had nearly been raped after all. This did not seem the appropriate time for romance, but the moment overtook her. She embraced the green-clad hero tightly, letting her bag mess with his, fireworks going off behind her eyes, either from the kiss or the temporary loss of oxygen. Soon they broke apart, and noticed that Gizmo Duck politely looked away. They looked back to each other and blushed, before they all three rushed back towards the office to give the all clear. Meanwhile, it's over, Ferret. We know all about the plan, said Dewey, eyes hot coals of hate aiming down the sight of a duck musket.
Of course I do,
said Ferret, the sounds of rubbers out in the hall not going positively for him.
What do you know, pray tell? Merely good business sense put to work. You have said yourself that a business is merely a machine to make more money.
But it's a fair machine, Ferret. It's driven by the needs of the people on the consumer end, and the profit comes from the guy that can provide the best products.
Men like us create markets for things all the time.
Not for war. Not to trade people's lives for profit, Ferret. What you're doing...
What I'm doing would have made your uncle proud.
It would have made him sick to his stomach, Ferret Kagan. You would never stoop to what he was dead. Dewey looked down to beak on Ferret Kagan, who was slowly standing from his place on the ground. You started a war for the express purpose to what? To make a bare profit margin? McDuck Enterprises was doing just fine before you decided to screw with it.
I must admit,
began Ferret as he stood, getting his dignity back as he brushed himself off.
There is a bit more to it than that.
Dewey's gun followed. It was clear he was waiting for the tiger to give his reasons.
Imagine you were the nephew of a great man. Not so hard. And imagine that the great man's company, that he built from the ground up with his own blood and sweat, was bought out by someone else, apparently a greater man, and was made a peon, a lowly executive, while the CEO stole his seat set up on the ivory tower somewhere in the United States, with so much money he could swim in it.
So you took over McDuck Enterprises for revenge? You laid siege to Duckburg for revenge? You started a war between the U.S. and Soviet Union, a war that could spiral out of control into nuclear holocaust for revenge?
That's only part of it,
said Ferret, adjusting his tie.
Getting back at McDuck is strictly beside the point. Mostly it was to do with what my own uncle taught me. Seek the bottom line at all costs.
As he stood, Ferret crossed his arms.
So what now? Are you going to shoot me? Beat me up? They'll still label you a terrorist and I a martyr. I don't see what the point of this little visit is, Mr. McDuck. I've already won.
Not where I'm standing, said Huey as he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small recording device, courtesy of Gear Loose Magazine's Moonlight Vigilante line. He switched off the writing recorder. Courtesy of the Green Phantom. The play button was fuzzed, and Ferret's voice mocked back at him.
Don't see what the point of this little visit is, Mr. Duck. I've already won.
Ferret's eyes went wide. He backed up to the bookshelf.
No, you.
You lose, Ferret, said Dewey. Now you're going to come with us to just HQ quietly?
I think not.
Another button was pressed. The bookshelf landed, twisted around quickly, and revealed nothing but the bookcase, with no Ferret inside. Dewey swore loudly and rushed forward, pressing the same button to follow Carrot as the three superheroes ran back inside. Dewey! Cried PK, slipping in just as the bookcase swirled around, slamming itself on a book that had fallen on the shelf, was between the bookcase and frame, unable to be opened by the others. The emergency roof access door burst open as Farrakhan ran at top speed across the wide helipad. There was a private helicopter he kept on the roof. As he neared the vessel, he could hear the door open and curse loudly. "Farrad!" cried Dewey, running after the tiger, musket in hand. Farrad made it to the helicopter and reached inside. A pistol found its way into his hands, firing his payload towards the duck with a loud snap. Once Dewey was able to dive away just in time. On his stomach then, Dewey took aim with his musket and fired. Crack! Went the gun. In a terrible instantaneous movement, the gun in Ferry's hand, as well as the hand itself, simply disappeared. Blood splurted from Ferry's wrist as he screamed, falling away from the helicopter, clutching his wrists close to stymie the flow of blood. Dewey stood, still wielding the unarmed musket. He ran up to Ferret, who was struggling to his feet to get away from the duck. "Nobody!" cried Dewey, as the butt of the musket found Persis in Ferret's face. "Fox!" he continued, planting a foot in Ferret, causing him to roll further away from the helicopter. "With—" The butt of the gun was once again used. "My—" Stomp! Dewey's wet foot crushed against the man's chest. "Families!" A fist shot out, cracking the man's jaw. With this, the butt of the gun was once again applied to the man's face, as he tried to stand away from the raids of the Duck family. Combined with the pragmatism and vengefulness of the McDuck clan, the blow sent him tumbling backwards, landing with a thump on his back. Dewey approached, concussed blood dripping out of the butt of the rifle. Ferret's face looking around desperately for something to use. He saw, still clutched in his dead, detached hand, the gun. With his offhand, he pried the still pliable fingers off the gun, snatched it up, pointed towards the oncoming duck. "Dewey!" cried a voice. "Look out!" Ferret, panicking, altered his shot towards the voice and fired. Dewey turned. Eyes went wide as he saw PK standing near the doorway. Frozen in expressive surprise. As he watched, he crumpled to the floor silently. Then something within Dewey stirred. He couldn't help but run over as Ferret lay dazed on the edge of the rooftop. He knelt PK and rolled him to face up the sky, supporting his head. "PK, are you alright?" "Kid, Ferret, you're hurt. You need help. I'm not important. It's you. You and your brothers. You're the future. I'm just an old..." Not understanding the profound feelings within him, Dewey couldn't help but feel overcome by the emotion as this masked man lay bleeding in his arms. Quickly telling himself to give him some much needed air, Dewey ripped away the mask to reveal the face behind. He gasped. "Uncle Donald!" he cried. Okay, if you saw this coming, you've read way too many comics. You've also probably guessed from the overuses of Donald Duck photos that I've been actually using throughout this whole entire story. See? My cover images were giving you hints. See? I'm clever. I don't have a community college degree for nothing, you know. White, lined face of the duck. Donald Duck were plain, a single eye, the other lost in some unknowable conflict since its disappearance was the only feature Dewey couldn't place on the otherwise painfully familiar face. I want to do the Donald Duck voice so badly, but sadly, I'm nowhere near as good as this voice actor to be able to. Okay, I can't do it. Alright, so instead, I'm gonna do a little bit of my own take on the voice and just let you handle it. I didn't want you to know. Uncle Donald, you've been watching over us this whole time? Yes, I wanted that you saw seeing Pasito. To tell me where you would be. I wanted to see. Don't talk, Uncle Donald, insisted Dewey, taking his jacket and laying it over the duck's wound to stop the blood from flowing. You were... He began to sweat, surprised at a sudden wound being taken by pain. You were always a good kid, Dewey. You all were. I'm glad. I'm glad Uncle Scrooge's legacy is... Please, Uncle Donald, shh. You're too weak. The roof access door opened yet again, and this time Huey and Louie appeared. Huey always screamed as he saw Donald Duck stretched out, bullet in him. Ran over, kneeling. Uncle Donald, no! Huey... A sudden wrecking sob toward the air, rending Dewey and Louie's souls to the core. Their brother, a strong, unbreakable pillar of the three Duck boys, had tears in his cheeks, as he looked at the one-eyed face of Donald Duck. "Don't die, Uncle Donald!" cried Huey. "Don't die! I couldn't go on! Please, don't leave us alone! Not again!" Lee walked up and inspected the wound.
"We need to get him downstairs. To a doctor. Where's Ferret?"
Dewey looked over and saw that Ferret had not been where he left. Sid quickly took up his musket. "Take care of Uncle Donald." Okay, if this were animated, I could see him standing in front of a moon, in front of a full moon, ding, eclipse and shadow, ding, while his tie is flapping in the breeze and looking all sort of badass. He said, as Louise's impassive face and Huey's tear-stained one looked up at him. "Get him somewhere safe. I've got some unfinished business." Without looking back to see his two brothers carefully move the injured, half-costumed PK down the roof, Dewey crept along the room, conscious of the fact that Farrad, one-headed though he might be, still had a loaded gun. He ran up to the helicopter and used it as cover. Finally giving him his hands to pour a measure of powder down into the musket, before tamping it down with the ramrod, before loading the shot and once again giving it a tap. Now armed, he once again began to creep along the roof, looking all around himself. Pow! One shot behind him, near the edge of the roof. Farrah Keegan was there, his hands and face marred and bloodied from Dewey's working over him earlier. He fired again, and Dewey felt a pain in his leg. He yelled to look down. His leg had been struck, but it was only nicked. It was a flesh wound that he could still walk on. He did, walking in perfect as far as Farrad, whose face was controlled in a sudden expansion of sublime fear. A shot from the pistol missed. Dewey got closer. The shot veered off course as Farrad's hand shook uncontrollably.
"Get away from me!"
Farrad screamed, wanting to steady the gun with both hands. Saying nothing, Dewey merely raised his musket and fired. Farrad struck. He looked down and saw the spreading blood staining his immaculate shirt. Knew in a moment that it was the end. Looked up at Dewey, face cold and calculating, in a flash of wild hate, found the strength, even without the ability to breathe fully. Raised his gun one more time and fire. Dewey, for a moment, did not feel anything. Merely continued to walk towards Farrah Keegan, unaware of any injury he sustained.
"Impossible,"
said Farrad, in the motion of a cry, but only the ability of a whisper. "Impossible!" With a single punch from Dewey Duck, Farrad found himself flying, watching the still rising sun over the upside-down cityscape, Bombay, grow down from his vision. The sun seeming to set upwards behind the jagged outlines of the square towers. He was screaming as he fell from the con building. But no sound came out. Oh, sweet heavenly baby Celestia on high, again with the falling off of something tall. What is with this thing in tall building deaths? Instead, blood was gushing from his windpipe, and he slowly backed out, wondering idly why. Back on the roof, Dewey sighed. It was over at last. The recording would clear his name. Even if there was to be a war, it would get no help from Dewey Duck. That's when the adrenaline wore off, and the pain in his chest became apparent. Before 5 seconds of panic realization occurred, loss of blood and exhaustion caused Dewey Duck to pass out, placing a hand over the gnarled hole that had been drilled directly over his heart. You people are probably wondering what's going to happen next. Well, you're going to have to wait till next week.